Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So today I am here to talk about my June TBW. I am doing my rank and review like I do every month of my TBW picks. So that means that we will be talking about these three films right here, which is why I thought it would be fitting to film at least another video in front of this set of films, because we have my wrestling collection, which I have a wrestling documentary, then of course Parasite from my Criterion Collection right behind me here. So, and then Apartment 143, which is a Big Lots find. So yeah, it's from Magnet Releasing. So unfortunately I don't have a Magnet collection, but yeah, either way, I thought this would be fitting. So anyway, I'm going on and on here about nothing. So if you guys have a second, please hit that like button. That engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into my June TBW rank and review series video, whatever this is. Coming in at number 3 on the list is going to be my Big Lots pick, unfortunately. This is Apartment 143. So, which is also called like Emergo or Emergo, however you would say that word. But this one is directed by Carlos Torrens, I think is how you would say that, and it's from 2011. So this is one that, like, I love found footage films, so I was hoping I would enjoy this one, and it's not terrible. Like, it's not a bad movie. It's not something I see myself, like, getting rid of. Would I watch it again? I mean, I might. I could see myself picking it up again down the line. But anyway, so this, like I said, it's found footage. So we are following this group of course, paranormal investigators, and they are going to this family's apartment, the titular 143. There is a man and then a daughter who's like a teenage daughter. I think she's 17, and then like a 4-year-old boy. The mom is no longer in the picture. She's passed away. And the apartment something's going on in the apartment. The apartment's haunted, or this family's haunted. Something is going on, and the paranormal investigators are trying to figure out what exactly is happening here. So the premise works. Like, it's a pretty, standard found footage film, and I think it works just fine. What doesn't work, though, is just, like, we get so little of these characters. Frankly, like, we get nothing of the paranormal investigators whatsoever. I know nothing about them. I watched this, a little while ago now, so I couldn't tell you their names, of course, but, you don't learn anything about them. Very little, at least. And then even the family, like, you do learn quite a lot. It's a lot of info dump, though, unfortunately. So I'm a guy who, I love a good long take. And there is a scene in this movie where they're talking to the father figure. It has to be, it felt like 10 minutes, like 10, 12 minutes. I don't even know exactly, but it was a super long take. One shot, just like me, like you're looking at me right now, super long take. And so that was like, I admire that the director went for it, because you don't see that a lot. So I really liked that aspect of it, but it wasn't terribly interesting when they were doing it either. And not because it wasn't moving, it wasn't a moving camera or anything like that. It just, the story they were telling, again, it was just info dump, kind of what led up to where we are now. So that was a little bit disappointing. There are longer segments of that throughout the film, which again, I admire what they're going for, but it just didn't work quite as well as I would have liked it to have worked in this movie. This, I think I wrote, like, this is simultaneously the craziest found footage film I've ever seen and the most boring I've ever seen. So, which is such a weird juxtaposition, because when it's going, it is just insane. Some of the stuff that happens in this is absolutely crazy. But it's not that creepy, which is also disappointing. Like, there are a couple, maybe 1 or 2 creepy moments, but overall, it's not that creepy. But I also say it's boring just because of those super long segments that don't do much. We get a ton of just these characters talking to each other when it's not really driving the plot forward all that much either. So you get very little character in this at all. I did love the daughter character in this. She actually plays a girlfriend character in the television series The Middle. I think it's Axel's girlfriend at one point, and I love her. She's great. So that's what I know her from. But yeah, other than that, I didn't recognize too many of the characters. I think one of the paranormal investigators I recognized, but I couldn't place him. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, it's It's not terrible. It's not the worst found footage film I've ever seen, but I don't really think it's worth your time either. And that's really kind of the death kiss. If it's not worth your time, then what are we even talking about it for, you know? So yeah, disappointed a little bit, but I wasn't expecting too much anyway. So anyway, Apartment 143 from 2011, I am giving 2 out of 5 stars. Number 2 this month is going to be, is it my Criterion pick or my wrestling pick? Criterion or wrestling? That's the big question, but it has to be my wrestling pick. This is Brian Pillman, Loose Cannon from 2006, and I don't see a director, but I'm going to assume it's Kevin Dunn because he did like all of these back then. So yeah, I don't know for sure. But anyway, this is a documentary about the professional wrestler Brian Pillman. So Brian Pillman is a very interesting character because toward the end of his life, it was like, you know, was he a work or a shoot? Kind of just his personality. Was he being genuinely crazy, or was he just playing this loose cannon character to its maximum potential? And so that's just what makes him a fascinating character. Obviously, he was an excellent professional wrestler, just an incredible athlete in general. He played all the way up to professional football with the Cleveland Browns. And then he had an injury, and so that took him out of football, and then he became a professional wrestler, and obviously went on to, WCW, ECW, and WWF at the time, WWE now. And so he was just all over, did a lot, and was very influential, very ahead of his time, just doing a lot of things that we see wrestlers do and take for granted today. He kind of was at the forefront of that in the late 80s, early 90s. So anyway, that's who Brian Pillman is. I was never the biggest Brian Pillman fan because when I started watching wrestling, he died a few years later. So I didn't know him all that well, but growing up and watching, everything I watched behind me and just, learning the history of pro wrestling, I very much respect and love what I watch from Brian Pillman. And so this documentary. So what speaks volumes about this documentary is I watched this toward the beginning of June, and I don't remember too many of the specifics at this point, but even before that, it turns out I'd watched this movie before, but this felt like a first time watch to me, but I'd already reviewed it on Letterboxd. So yeah, it's a very forgettable documentary. I think that's kind of the name of the game here. It's a great kind of primer for who Brian Pillman was, but it doesn't get anything above anything deeper than the surface level. I noted, like, at one point, his wife, who's in this documentary, she talks about, toward the end of his life, she's like, things are not okay. Like, you're getting into all these car wrecks with these rental cars. Like, that's not normal. But we don't get anything more. It's like, I want more than that. And I found out after watching that there is a dark side of the ring about Brian Pillman. And that's the era we're in now, right? Like, K-Fob is dead. We are in the era where we get to go behind the scenes. We get to see all these things, kind of the dark side of the ring. Brought that on, to bring the dark side up. And I think that's what we're looking for. At least me, that's what I'm looking for as a wrestling fan nowadays, because I've grown up with this, like I've watched professional wrestling since I can't even tell you how young, like as long as I remember. I found the WrestleMania 1 VHS tape in my uncle's closet downstairs. And ever since then, I've been a wrestling fan. We used to go to his house and watch the wrestling pay-per-views down in the basement all the time. Like it's always been a part of me. And so I'm at the point where I want to know more. I want to go deeper. And this just doesn't do that. This is from the mid 2000s and it feels like it. So while it's good, if you don't know anything about Brian Pillman as a person and a wrestler, I think it's good, but it is very surface. And so that's why I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, that said, I'm still giving this one, I think I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like, it's a good documentary. It's put together well. You get his sisters, his wife is in there. You get the, other wrestlers talking about him. But I want more. And so that's why this one I won't remember it too long from now, I'm sure. I definitely want to check out the dark side of the ring, though. So yeah, Brian Pillman, Loose Cannon. Like I said, I'm giving 3.5 out of 5, and it falls into the number 2 slot this month. So that means that coming in at number 1, of course, is going to be Parasite from 2019. This is directed by Bong Joon-ho. So if you knew this one was coming, right? Like, how could it not? So this film utterly blew me away. This was not at all what I was expecting. I thought this was a horror movie. This isn't a horror movie. Like, this is really like a comedic thriller of sorts, but it's a drama also. There's so much going on here. Like, my review I wrote on Letterboxd for this was like 2 sentences. Like, it was right after it was done. Like, I couldn't put words together. So I apologize that I'm going to stumble my way through this, discussion of it today. But, so basically Parasite, it's a story about class. So we are following this lower class family. They live in this like dank basement of this, giant apartment unit or whatever. And, it stinks. It's just a kind of gross place. Trying to scrape by. They literally are folding pizza boxes in the beginning of the movie to try to make a living. And then there's this other family who is living in luxury. They have this amazing, beautiful house with land, like there's grass, they have this yard and everything. It's beautiful. And basically the son character, so there's a husband, a wife, and a daughter and a son, both teenagers. I think they're both graduated at this point from high school. So we are following our main character, I would say, is the son. And he ends up taking on this job to tutor English to this high school girl. Well, because one of his friends was leaving, he was going on like studying abroad or something. And so he asked him to take over. And so he does. But then he realizes, man, I might actually be able to get some of my other family members in working with this ultra rich family because they seem pretty gullible. And so that's what he sets out to do with him and his family. They try to basically take over the role of like driver, not nurse, nanny. And then what's the other one? Oh, it's another like art tutor, I guess is the other one. And so that's what they're trying to do. And then the halfway point happens and it's like, what the hell just happened here? Like, this movie takes such a big turn at one point, and it's like, okay, I did not know that was coming. So it was jarring. It was shocking. It was phenomenal. I was in tears by the end of this because it is just so profoundly sad. I could not get over how sad this is for so many different reasons. At one point, the like rich family is talking about how their driver smells. Well, the driver is the dad, and he happens to be hearing all of this, and it's just like it's just so sad. Like, I don't know what other word to use. It made my heart sink. It's like, no one should hear these things said about them. And that's just like so minor, so minuscule compared to the overall of what is happening in this movie. It is just, again, it was completely unexpected. I thought I was going into almost a horror film. That's not what this is. Like, so don't go into it expecting that, but don't really look up too much about it either. Just see the film. If you've not seen it, well, frankly, everyone watching this probably already has seen it because it is super popular and it took me forever to get around to it. But of course, this is, the first ever foreign language film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. And that's just like amazing. And I can see why. The cinematography on this is so cool. There are some shots that just look phenomenal. And I'm like, how do they do that? Like, it looks so cool. The arc of this movie, I think, is perfect. It is perfectly paced. I was never bored. How long is this one? 131 minutes. So it's over, 2 hours and 11 minutes. So it's not short, but I was hooked from the beginning. Like, this family is just so charismatic. They have such a future ahead of them. And like the dad, just the pride he has in his kids, even though they're doing maybe not the best things ever, or, the most reputable things. It's just like, I love it so much. It's a fantastic movie. So I'm gushing. I'm not saying anything of value, but like, you need to see this movie. It is so well done. This one is definitely one I will watch again and again as the years go on. I cannot recommend it enough. I absolutely see why this one won Best Picture. It was so deserving. It's so meaningful. There is so much there about kind of like the hypocrisy of class and things like that. Just the ultra rich against the ultra poor, really. And it has so much to say, and it says it so well. Not that necessarily like I'm smart enough to articulate it, but I felt it. And I think that's, when you feel a film on a visceral level, I think it's succeeded, right? Like, and it's done what it's supposed to do. So, man, I don't know, like, Bong Joon-ho is wonderful. I cannot wait to watch more from him. Parasite is phenomenal. It is officially my first 5 out of 5 from my TBW game for the year. It was great. Watch this film. It's half off right now at Barnes & Noble. If you're watching this when this video releases, go buy it. It's phenomenal. All right, so all things considered, this was a hell of a month compared to my previous few months. I am so happy that Parasite ended up on my list. I mean, I'm going to talk about it again at the end of the year. I guarantee it. But, yeah, so a wonderful month that was, kind of mediocre until I ended up watching Parasite, and it made it all worth it. So really excited about the month of July as well. Definitely check out my July TBR and TBW video if you haven't seen that. I do have a couple of picks from Criterion. I have an Arrow video pick. I'm forgetting what the last one is, but it ended up being 4 movies for the month of April. So I'll have 4, or for the month of July rather. So I'll have 4 to talk about next time. But anyway, guys, if you've seen any of these, let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Did I gush too much about Parasite? Probably, but let me know what you thought about it down below. And is Apartment 143 better than I'm thinking it was, or better than I found it? Let me know what your thoughts are on these movies and anything else down below. I always appreciate all of your support down there, so thank you so much for that. But as always, guys, if you did enjoy this one, please give it a like down below. That engagement really does help me out. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, pro wrestling sometimes, apparently. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you guys next time.